The terms Philistine and Palestinian are often confused, but they refer to distinct groups in different historical contexts. While both names share a linguistic and geographical similarity, their origins and meanings diverge significantly. To understand the difference, we need to examine the historical, cultural, and modern implications of each term. This script will explore how the Philistines of ancient history differ from the Palestinians of today. Understanding this distinction requires a deep dive into both ancient civilizations and contemporary geopolitics. The Philistines were an ancient people who lived in the eastern Mediterranean region around the 12th century BCE. They are believed to have been part of the Sea Peoples, a group of seafaring invaders. Their primary settlements were along the coastal areas of what is now Israel and the Gaza Strip. The five Philistine city-states, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath, became the heart of their civilization. The Philistines were known for their distinct culture, influenced by Aegean and local traditions. In contrast, Palestinians are the modern-day descendants of various peoples who have lived in the region for centuries. Palestinians trace their heritage to the Arab and indigenous populations of the area. Their identity has been shaped by a complex history involving Arab, Ottoman, and British influences, as well as the rise of modern Zionism. Palestinians today predominantly reside in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and neighboring countries like Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Unlike the Philistines, Palestinians are not an ancient civilization, but a modern ethnic and national group. The origin of the Philistines is a subject of much debate among historians and archaeologists. Most scholars agree that they were part of the Sea Peoples, a group of seafaring migrants who arrived in the eastern Mediterranean around the 12th century BCE. These people likely originated from the Aegean region, which includes parts of modern Greece and Turkey. They settled along the coast of Canaan, establishing the five city-states that formed the heart of their civilization. Archaeological evidence supports the idea that the Philistines came from the Aegean region. Their distinctive pottery, weapons, and other artifacts show clear Aegean influences. Some scholars suggest that the Philistines may have been part of the Greek Mycenaean civilization. The Philistine cities, such as Gaza and Ashkelon, were heavily fortified and strategically located along vital trade routes. These cities flourished in the 12th and 11th centuries BCE, becoming powerful centers of trade and culture. However, despite their Aegean origins, the Philistines absorbed elements of local Canaanite culture. Their language was a variant of the Aegean tongue, but they adopted many practices from their Canaanite neighbors. Over time, the Philistines integrated into the broader cultural and political landscape of the ancient Near East. The Philistine influence began to fade by the 6th century BCE due to invasions by the Babylonians and other empires, leading to the decline of their civilization. Palestinian identity emerged much later than the Philistine civilization, but it is deeply rooted in the history of the land. Palestinians trace their heritage to the Arab populations who have lived in the region for over 1,000 years. The spread of Islam in the 7th century CE brought Arabic language and culture to the area. Over centuries, the region became part of various empires, including the Ottoman Empire, and Palestinians developed a unique cultural identity linked to their land. The modern Palestinian identity became more pronounced during the 19th and 20th centuries, particularly in response to the rise of Zionism and the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Palestinians view themselves as the indigenous people of the land, with historical ties to the region going back centuries. This identity is not based on ancient origins like the Philistines, but is the product of a long history of Arab presence and settlement in the area. The rise of modern Palestinian nationalism occurred as a response to the changing political dynamics of the 20th century. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the British mandate in Palestine created new geopolitical realities. The displacement of Palestinian Arabs due to the creation of Israel and ongoing territorial disputes solidified Palestinian identity as a distinct national group. Palestinians today identify with a shared culture, language, and historical experience, which has evolved over time. The Philistines were an ancient people with their own unique culture. They were known for their distinct pottery, metalworking, and architecture, which set them apart from neighboring peoples. The Philistine cities were known for their advanced fortifications, including large city walls and gates. Their religion was polytheistic, with gods like Dagon and Ashtoreth. Over time, the Philistines adapted to the cultures around them, including those of the Canaanites and Israelites. In contrast, Palestinian culture is a rich tapestry of Arab, Islamic, and local traditions. Palestinian culture is deeply influenced by the Arabic language, Islamic religion, and the historical experiences of the Palestinian people. Palestinian music, cuisine, and art reflect a blend of these influences. The cultural practices of Palestinians have evolved over centuries, incorporating elements of various empires that have ruled the region, including the Ottomans and the British. While the Philistines had their own distinct culture, Palestinians share many cultural ties with other Arab peoples. Their food, dress, music, and language are similar to those of other groups in the Levant, such as Jordanians and Syrians. However, Palestinian culture is also shaped by the unique political and social challenges faced by Palestinians over the past century, particularly in relation to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This conflict has become a defining feature of modern Palestinian identity. The Philistines spoke a language that was related to the Aegean region, likely an early form of Greek or a related dialect. Their language is not well documented, but fragments of inscriptions and pottery suggest that their communication was heavily influenced by their Aegean origins. The Philistine language was different from the languages spoken by their Canaanite neighbors, such as Hebrew and Phoenician. In contrast, Palestinians speak Arabic, a language that has been spoken in the region for over 1,000 years. Arabic is the dominant language in the Palestinian territories, as well as in surrounding countries like Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. The Arabic language is a cornerstone of Palestinian identity, linking them to the broader Arab world. It is through language that Palestinians express their cultural traditions, as well as their political aspirations. The connection between language and identity is crucial for both the Philistines and Palestinians. While the Philistines were an ancient people with a distinct language rooted in their Aegean origins, Palestinians' Arabic language ties them to the larger Arab world. The Philistine language disappeared with the fall of their civilization, but the Arabic language has persisted for centuries, continuously evolving with the changing political and cultural realities of the region. The Philistines practiced a polytheistic religion, with deities such as Dagon, the god of fertility, and Ashtoreth, the goddess of love and war. Their religious practices were similar to those of other ancient Near Eastern cultures, and they built temples to honor their gods. The Philistine religion was an important aspect of their society, influencing their rituals, festivals, and political decisions. In contrast, Palestinians today are primarily Muslim, with a smaller Christian minority. The spread of Islam in the 7th century CE reshaped the religious landscape of the region. Palestinian Muslims follow the teachings of Islam with a strong emphasis on community, charity, and religious observances such as fasting during Ramadan and performing the Hajj pilgrimage. Christianity also has deep roots in Palestine, with many historical Christian sites located in cities like Bethlehem. While the religious practices of the Philistines were polytheistic, modern Palestinians are monotheistic, following Islam and Christianity. This shift in religious beliefs is one of the most significant differences between the two groups. The spread of Islam in the 7th century CE played a major role in the transformation of the region's religious identity, influencing Palestinian culture, politics, and society. The Philistine civilization began to decline around the 6th century BCE, primarily due to invasions by the Babylonians. The once thriving city-states of the Philistines were absorbed by larger empires, and their culture faded from history. The destruction of Philistine cities like Gaza and Ashkelon marked the end of their political and cultural dominance. By the 5th century BCE, the Philistines had disappeared as a distinct civilization. The Palestinians, however, have a long history that continues into the present day. While the region has been conquered and ruled by various empires throughout history, including the Romans, Byzantines, Ottomans, and British, Palestinians have maintained their identity through language, religion, and cultural traditions. Unlike the Philistines, whose civilization was absorbed by larger empires, Palestinians have persisted as a distinct people throughout history. The historical decline of the Philistines contrasts sharply with the ongoing existence of the Palestinians. Though the Philistines disappeared as a civilization, Their legacy lives on in the cultural memory of the region. Palestinians, on the other hand, continue to face challenges related to territorial disputes and political struggles, but they remain a vital and active community in the modern world. The name Philistine has evolved over time. In ancient texts, the Philistines were often portrayed as enemies of the Israelites, and their name became synonymous with barbarism. Biblical stories, such as the tale of David and Goliath, cemented the Philistines' image as fierce warriors and antagonists. Over time, the name Philistine came to symbolize an uncivilized or hostile force in Western literature. In contrast, the term Palestinian has become associated with the modern-day people of the region. The name Palestine itself has ancient roots, dating back to Roman times, when the area was called Judea, and later renamed Palestina after the Philistines. However, it is only in the 20th century that the term Palestinian became a central aspect of national identity, particularly after the establishment of Israel and the subsequent displacement of Palestinian Arabs. The use of the name Philistine in modern times is often misunderstood. The Philistines are an ancient people, their civilization long gone, while Palestinians are a living people with a rich cultural and political identity. The confusion arises because the name Philistine has been used historically in a pejorative sense, often disconnected from the actual historical Philistine civilization. For Palestinians, this association is an unfortunate misconception that they continue to challenge. The geopolitical context of the Philistines was one of conflict and defense. As settlers in a contested region, the Philistines often clashed with neighboring peoples, including the Israelites. They built strong city walls to defend against invasions and frequently fought off external threats. Their cities were strategically located on trade routes, making them a vital part of the ancient Mediterranean economy. For Palestinians, the geopolitical context is similarly defined by conflict, but with a different set of dynamics. Since the 20th century, the Palestinian people have found themselves at the center of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The creation of Israel in 1948 displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, and ongoing territorial disputes have led to decades of conflict. The Palestinian territories, including the West Bank and Gaza Strip, remain at the heart of the modern Middle Eastern political struggle. The historical context of the Philistines contrasts with the current political context for Palestinians. While the Philistines were absorbed by larger empires after their defeat, Palestinians continue to resist occupation and fight for self-determination. The modern Palestinian struggle is rooted in territorial and national disputes, rather than the collapse of an ancient civilization. In conclusion, while the names Philistine and Palestinian may sound similar, they refer to entirely different groups. The Philistines were an ancient people who thrived in the eastern Mediterranean over 2,000 years ago, while Palestinians are a modern people with deep historical roots in the region. The confusion between the two arises from the linguistic similarity and shared geographical association. The Philistines were an ancient civilization with their own culture, language, and religion. They were eventually absorbed by other empires and disappeared as a distinct people. The name Philistine has been used in modern times to refer to a barbaric or uncivilized enemy, which is a misrepresentation of the ancient Philistines' rich cultural legacy. Palestinians, on the other hand, are a living people with a long history of settlement in the region. Their identity has evolved over centuries and is rooted in the Arab and Islamic traditions that have shaped the region since the 7th century CE. The Palestinians continue to face political challenges, particularly in relation to the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The key difference between the Philistines and Palestinians is not just a matter of time, but also of culture, language, and historical experience. The Philistines were a specific ancient people who no longer exist as a distinct group, while Palestinians are a modern ethnic and national group with deep historical and cultural ties to the land. Their experiences have shaped their identity in ways that are markedly different from the ancient Philistine civilization. It is essential to recognize these differences to avoid misconceptions. The confusion between the two terms has often led to the oversimplification of complex histories and cultures. The Philistines were one of many peoples who once lived in the ancient world, while Palestinians represent a modern nation with ongoing struggles for self-determination and peace. Understanding the difference between the Philistines and Palestinians allows for a more nuanced view of the region's history. It also helps in understanding the current geopolitical issues surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. By recognizing the separate legacies of these two groups, we can better appreciate the complexity of the region's past and present.